Hello there, welcome back to the booth here at Pro Tour Dominaria. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. This is Simon Gertzen, and we are down the stretch here on day number 2. This is, of course, where things get very interesting in our feature match area because we are going to be deciding who makes it into the top 8 and who doesn't over the course of the next 2 rounds. Down in the feature match area right now, we have Kevin Jones from the United States. He's going to be playing against Márcio Carvalho from Portugal. Looks like they've got a winning in. Let's head on down to the feature match area. Hello and welcome back to coverage here at Pro Tour Dominaria. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm in the booth with Simon Gertzen, and we are set for round 15 action. Just 2 more rounds of Swiss left in the day. In our feature match area, we have at 11-2-1, Kevin Jones from the United States. You can tell because of his hat. On the other side of the table, Márcio Carvalho from Portugal. He is 11-3. Now, effectively, at least for this round, that's the same record. If they win, they're going to make it into the top 8 under all reasonable circumstances.
Exactly. There's, of course, always the question whether you find somebody to draw with. But let's assume that the winner here is in. And we saw Kevin Jones just last round where he defeated Blue-White Control, Greg Orange, in quite impressive fashion. Now he has to show whether his Blue-Black Midrange deck can also take on the Tier 1 deck of the format, Red-Black Aggro.
That's right. So interesting stuff as he's really sort of been thrown 2 different ends of the spectrum here. Very aggressive deck versus a pure control deck. And Kevin Jones with blue-black sits right in between them. Kevin says, you can go ahead and exile a card, but is he going to use the Walking Ballista to just kill the Bowmat Courier? That's the question. Block, and then get rid of it. So Bowmat Courier down, just a straight 1-for-1 trade there. But the follow-up plays a good one for Carvalho. He's got himself a Scrap Heap Scrounger. And a creature in the graveyard already of note.
Yeah, also a packed hand. He has a lot of powerful spells. Not quite as many lands, though. Kevin Jones, by the way, punished it a little bit by his draw step there. Ugrel's Bloodfast.
Oof.
A one-off in his deck that he really doesn't want to draw against aggro.
Yeah, not so fun of there. He'd like to get rid of that. Though this is kind of interesting. Card that you see pop up every once in a while. Ether Meltdown. Good against these recursive threats. And you'll see it against vehicles sometimes as well.
And a big deal here that Márcio misses his 3rd land drop.
That's right, but the problem for Kevin Jones is that his only play is that Argoel's Bloodfast. Does he dare start activating it?
I would.
I would too. Especially now that Carvalho has fallen this far behind on mana. No plays. All he has in his hand is a Cut to Ribbons that he could potentially cast, and that is not looking very good here. Okay, so Kevin Jones is going to take advantage of this reprieve he's gotten. And look at that. He used his Champion of Wits. He even found himself a Fatal Push in case Márcio does happen to hit.
This does look kind of nice. But still, Márcio has a super powerful hand. So imagine him drawing a red source, an untapped red source, following up with Chainwhirler that takes out the Champion of Wits, and then he can unload more and more creatures, Phoenixes, and Chandra, Torch of Defiance.
Well, that's exactly what's going to happen here. Goblin Chainwhirler goes on the stack. That's going to knock Kevin Jones down to 16 and kill his Champion of Wits. But he does have Revolt as a result of the trigger from Goblin Chainwhirler, so he's going to use Fatal Push to send that thing packing. But that 3rd land, very important here for Carvalho with a handful of gasoline as well.
Yeah, and these Phoenixes, if you can't exile them, really, really troublesome. If Márcio knows what Kevin Jones is playing exactly, he might even find a way to resolve Chandra when Kevin is out of answers. Because Kevin doesn't have as much permission as other control decks, but of course he does have those Vraska's Contempt.
Yeah, he is packing 4 Vraska's Contempt in the main. And we see one of them right here. And that's a key play there. Getting rid of one of those Phoenixes is... those are a long-term problem for a deck like Blue-Black Midrange, and you need the right answer for it, and he had it this time.
16.
He's going to activate the Bloodfast again, down to 16. Remember, he gained 2 life from Vraska's Contempt as well, so he's breaking even there.
3 cards still, right?
Passes a turn back. Márcio wants to know how many cards Kevin Jones has. And here we go. Chandra Torch of Defiance goes on the stack, and all Kevin Jones can muster is a, yep, you got it. And Márcio is in that beautiful position of no board state of relevance on the other side, and he has an active Planeswalker, especially Chandra, but the fun will stop there. A second copy of Vraska's Contempt is what was needed, but Kevin had it.
Another relevant aspect here, by the way, Pia has an ability which allows her to sacrifice artifacts. So if you can get that Scrappy Scrounger into the graveyard, suddenly you have dealt with that Ether Meltdown.
That's right. 2 creatures now in the graveyard waiting for that Scrap Heap Scrounger to gobble them up.
Maybe a good target for Ivnir Deadlands. Just a clean answer to Pia Nalar, only costing you a land.
Kevin plays his land for the turn. He's tapping 3 mana for Never, it looks like. He's got Never to return in his hand.
Never seems like it's the more versatile answer for other threats when you have the Ivnir Deadlands to deal with PR right here. Maybe he just doesn't want to remove any of his mana sources.
It's possible he does go ahead and flash back and cast Return, which he is going to get a 2/2 black zombie token for his troubles, though they're just grabbing one from the pile of tokens.
Another Chandra off the top.
Oof, a lot of action here for Márcio Carvalho.
1 card.
Could go for the 1/2 punch of Chandra, make 2 mana, and then, for example, a Phoenix.
Márcio, of course, got second at the World Championship in 2016, losing to Brian Brown Doohan. He has 3 Pro Tour top 8s already on his resume. A critical 4th is within sight now for Márcio Carvalho. That's a career-defining top 8.
A ton of
15's right. We're good.
good finishes at the GP level, especially at European GPs
You're right.
as well.
I could be wrong. I just missed it. It's tough to make everything.
I'm always wrong on my life, don't worry.
Looks like they had a little life total discrepancy, but got it all sorted. We're going to see Chandra number 2. We are indeed.
Yeah.
And he pluses Chandra to make mana, meaning that he gets to play 7 mana worth of spells this turn. And this is a pace that is going to be very difficult for Kevin Jones to keep up with here in game number 1. He needs one of his power plays, and he needs it quickly. He's got 3 copies of the Scarab God, 2 Ravenous Chupacabra in the main as well.
Does that count as a power play?
I don't know.
I think it's not too bad. You're getting quite a lot for your mana. You didn't even have to invest a card. You're drawing 4, although that seems to be mostly lands. But I don't think it's good enough. Márcio's cards just seem overall much better.
I have not played a land yet.
Perhaps setting himself up, though. He is at 14. He's not going to die here.
Probably the reason
But
why he was
boy.
hesitating to sacrifice deserts.
Yes.
He needs 7 mana for the Eternalize.
On Champion of Wits, that's right.
Hot take, Marshall. Planeswalkers that generate 2 mana? Pretty good.
That's what you're here for, Simon. Dropping those hot takes on us when we least expect it. He finally found a target for cut
Yeah, sure. I'll go to 10.
with the 4/4 Eternalized Champion of Wits. And that clears the way for a mighty attack here. Down to 10 now is Kevin Jones.
Yeah.
And boy, the follow-up play is strong too. That advantage bar has been in Márcio's favor for quite a while, even when he was a little light on Lance, because he had 6 spells in his hand. And now we see the fruition of that. I mean, it's just hard to compete with that.
Once he drew the 3rd land, it was really his game. And Kevin's draw seems somehow weird. He has this Bloodfast that he wants against control decks. And then he spent a lot of removal spells, but 1-for-1ing an opponent that also plays Planeswalkers and Phoenixes, Scrap Heap Scroungers. That's a difficult proposition. That Ribbons is actually also quite threatening from the graveyard.
Yes, it really is, especially now that Marcio's drawn fully out of that situation. Now, there's a Never Again, though, and this is this one's going to kill Chandra. He still has Return available as well. And he's going to go ahead and do that. And he's going to get rid of Ribbons and the aftermath potential for that. So Kevin Jones navigating this as cleanly as he can, though still his main problem is he's behind on board.
Yeah, this has effectively gained him 4 to 5 life, but the Phoenix is coming through, the Chainwhirler can't be blocked, and the Thopter token is getting through as well. So Kevin is on 5 if he chump blocks the Chainwhirler. And how many more activations of Agrad's Bloodfast do you want to make?
Suppose he'll get one more.
Block here. 5.
And it feels like he's just fallen too far behind to mount a reasonable comeback. Remember, we've already seen 2 copies of Never and 2 copies.
Cycle.
Oh, he's going to actually cycle rather than activate the Bloodfast. I was going to say 2 copies of Vraska's Contempt as well.
Yeah, those are the cards he's most looking forward to drawing because
He can gain a little more life.
They deal with Chandra and Phoenix.
He does transform. And this means that he gets to potentially gain some life.
Monty.
The Temple of Aklazats, there it is on the screen. Tap it, sack a creature, you gain life equal to the sacrificed creature's toughness. Now he's playing a Gonti. He needs to find something, though, for one of those air creatures because he is facing lethal.
Yeah, one of those cards is Unlicensed Disintegration.
Ooh.
The other one might be a Braid.
This is getting kind of interesting now. Another champion of wits for Kevin Jones.
And the second Ether Meltdown.
Yeah, he did actually find that, which does answer a Rekindling Phoenix.
Kind of, yeah.
For a while?
I mean, for a while. If Marcel manages to kill it or sacrifice it, it will come back. But if it's as long as it's 0 power, that's actually quite a nice answer.
Yeah, this is starting to perhaps creep back. You still got to feel like Marcio's in the driver's seat, but
I want to see that temple
get activated.
Be the MVP of this game.
I do too.
Sacrifice Champion of Wits, eternalize it. Sacrifice the token.
It is not impossible that happens. Also, it's a pain for Marcio. Is Kevin Jones creeping back in this game?
You see, we said that Agrad's Bloodfast is a card to beat control decks, but suddenly you have a life gain engine.
We did see, by the way, a Braid kill Scrap Heap Scrounger there on end step, and then Marcio pay the mana to get Scrap Heap Scrounger back by exiling one of his creatures in the yard. But he needs some action.
I believe he drew Unlicensed Disintegration, and that might be the nail in the coffin.
Well, if Kevin can use that temple in response...
but he is going to use it after blockers, I'm afraid.
He's only taking 1.
So he's actually not dead.
No, he's got Ether Meltdown in his hand to make that Rekindling Phoenix a lot less potent. It looks like he went for the Abrade here instead.
Interesting.
Either way, though, he's not taking any damage from the Phoenix.
Still before damage.
And he is going to go for the block here, though this still leaves him at 1.
So I gained 3.
I mean, and what I mean by that is Márcio could get him to 1 and is going to choose not to here. But it means that Kevin Jones is not dying this turn and is up to 8. Then you're going to take the 1.
Yeah, I think he should be at 7 after damage resolves. And of course there is the egg of the Phoenix on the battlefield now. Wow, what a game.
Wow, this is getting really interesting now. Big top deck here for Kevin Jones. He finds Liliana, Death's Majesty.
That could be enough to turn things around. Her ability is super powerful when you have a Temple of Aklachos on the battlefield as well.
Did you see him look in his graveyard? He's like, what do I got? What kind of goodies do I have in here?
He probably doesn't even have the best kind of targets, right? Maybe Gonti is already the best card he can get.
Yeah. Is Kevin Jones actually going to turn around this game? This one feels like it's starting to slip away from Márcio Carvalho, and I kind of get the vibe from him that he might agree. He does not look happy with the proceedings.
Oh, his body language changed quite a bit.
You see that look on his face? He's like, are you serious? And there's that Gonti coming back.
Crazy.
He says, have at you. What was that? Did you get a chance to see?
Glorybringer over Pia. Pia also a nice card to choose here.
Yeah, I was going to say that to me signals that Kevin actually feels like he's able to start taking the fight to Márcio sooner than later, right? Because Pia's probably the more defensive spell here.
But no answer to the Phoenix?
Oh, he still has the Ether Meltdown in hand.
Oh, okay, so that's his plan.
Mm-hmm.
Then I don't quite understand why he abraded at all.
At 5, right?
I'm at 7.
He gained 3 when he
No,
said
he took 1.
And took 1, yeah, 7.
Now we see? No, I'm wrong.
And once again, pedal to the metal here from Márcio Carvalho. He turns everything sideways. I didn't get a look at what he drew. He has that unlicensed disintegration, but what else?
And I can only assume that all of these creatures are attacking Kevin Jones.
Yes, he didn't. It didn't seem perfectly clear, but I agree. It has to be the case. And there it is, Ether Meltdown. It was a mountain off the top.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, this is good.
5 energy.
Goes up to 5 energy.
Still.
And once again, we're going to see the same play. Gonti on the loop here.
This is very impressive.
Back to the graveyard.
I don't know about
3
you,
more
but this is the
life.
first time that I've seen Temple of Aklazot like that being such an important card in any game.
I mean, it has a good shot to win Kevin Jones 1 game of potentially 2 to get into the top 8 at the Pro Tour.
And I'll take 1 and go to 9.
Back down to 9, he says. Sure. And Carvalho just says go. He passes the turn back to Kevin Jones, who has scratched his way back into this game. Let's see what he draws for the turn.
Looked like a Doomfall, but honestly, it doesn't really matter what he draws because he has a Champion of Wits in the graveyard. 7 mana to eternalize a 4/4 back, get 2 new cards, make a zombie with Liliana, and you have a game 4 land available.
And look at that. He correctly decides to mill himself first to see if there's any better targets. Now he has interesting options for next turn with the Scarab God in the graveyard. But yeah, look at this. He's lining up 7 mana.
There's still a Glorybringer in exile.
Oh, great point. Yeah, that face down card that you see over on Kevin Jones' side, that is Márcio Carvalho's Glorybringer, but it is castable. Oh, this has been an awesome game. Marcio's still racking his brain trying to figure out how does this actually end for me in a good way. And there it is, Glorybringer for Kevin Jones.
Combat.
And all Carvalho can say is, sure, does he have to use Unlicensed Disintegration on the Glorybringer?
I don't think he wants to do that. I think what
Does he just want to kill his own
to kill the
Phoenix?
Phoenix and hope
Yeah.
to race that way. Maybe even take out Liliana first, because now it's just threatening to win the game, essentially by returning the Scarab God.
You exile a creature.
And look at this. You exile a creature, meaning that if Márcio wants to get rid of his Rekindling Phoenix that has the Ether Meltdown, it would just be gone permanently. And Kevin says, you know what, I'll take it.
Oh, return it, okay.
Yep.
Simple.
And so on end step here, Márcio says, you know what, I am going to use Unlicensed Disintegration, and then verbal shortcut says I'm going to return it. It's got haste. And this is what you predicted as well, Simon, that at this point, Liliana Death's Majesty is actually more important than the life total of Kevin Jones.
Because he has the temple, so you're just fighting an uphill battle if you leave the Planeswalker in play. So now Márcio needs to find a way to deal with that Glorybringer. If he can do that, it actually goes to his graveyard, so it fuels the Scrap Heap Scrounger.
The Renegade Glorybringer that he brought to the table and somehow is being attacked by?
Gonti also looked really impressive.
Absolutely.
Both times it came down.
Definitely. Generated very real advantage for Kevin Jones. A removal spell and a Glorybringer was what he got. Now are we going to see a Champion of Wits come back? There it is. Eternalize a Champion of Wits. I believe that Kevin drew a land for the turn. Yes, he did. Oh, Vraska's Contempt. Vraska's Contempt. Fatal Push. And a Scarab God? He does have to discard 2 of these, but that's pretty good, Simon.
Pretty decent.
Classic Gertz in there.
Maybe decent plus.
Wow. Unbelievable. And look at this. Can you imagine what Márcio must be thinking when he sees him discard, sure, a land, but also Vraska's Contempt in there?
He's hoping to top deck a removal spell for Glorybringer, and his opponent is discarding.
And he didn't do it, so instead he scoops up his permanents, and Kevin Jones completes the unlikely comeback thanks to, of all cards, Temple of Aklazats, and picks up game number 1. Whew. This is where things get intense, Simon.
One of us has been here before. One of us has.
And we're going to have a lot more intense Magic as well as updates for you right after these messages.
We went to our first convention, and that was my first game convention I ever went to. I started playing over the summer, and it was just me and my then boyfriend, now husband. We spent a bunch of time then getting together with like groups of like 10 to 20 people in these huge multiplayer games, and there were just people everywhere playing Magic. We kind of looked at each other and went, okay, do we really want to do this? And then we said yes, and that was it.
Welcome back to coverage here at Pro Tour Dominaria. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Simon Gertzen down in the feature match area. Well, that game went pretty long. Tim, what's been going on the other tables?
Well, while you've had one game to watch, Marshall, I've been watching 6 different games in our feature match area as all of our matches are going to game 3 on the back tables. So starting off with our back table of Wyatt Darby versus Ken Yukihiro. Game 1 looked pretty good for Darby as he got a couple of early Beaumont Courier down. Ultimately, though, he did not find his third land for a very long time indeed. By the time he did, there was already Khan and a Carnage Tyrant, Khan Tribal, if you will, for Ken Yukihiro to take game 1. Wyatt was able to bounce back, though, getting an early Hazaret and emptying his hand with a lot of low drops for game 2. He was able to take down Yukihiro, so those guys battling it out in their game 3 just now. Over on another side of things, we've had Ryuichi Murai against Manuel Lenz. Murai had the run of the cards on game 1, Chainwhirler, Hazaret, Chandra, and Rekindling Phoenix. And while there were a couple of Beaumont Couriers for Lenz, they were not enough to save him in game 1. However, in game 2, Lenz had a draw that seemed almost akin to a burn deck. 3 copies of Lightning Strike along with a Magma Spray, meaning that while both players had Chandra, it was ultimately Lenz that was the victor there. They are in their game 3, and finally we have Matt Severa against Dominic Projek. The green deck from Projek has had some very large threats on the board: Territorialosaurus, Steel Leaf, Champion, and so on, doing the do in game 1, but in game 2, Matt Severa found the flyers that he needed: Rekindling Phoenix, Glorybringer, enough to get the life totals low enough that finally it was a Chainwhirler, a Goblin Chainwhirler from Matt Severa squaring things up. Everyone's going to game 3. Lots of excitement in our feature match area on our back tables.
Thank you, Tim. Much appreciated. Boy, we need to take a deep breath after that first game of the series between Kevin Jones and Márcio Carvalho. And it looks like they're underway in game number 2. And let's see what's going on here. Well, turn 2 right off the bat. Scrap Heap Scrounger. Man, that does demand an answer pretty quickly. Well, Kevin Jones has one with Fatal Push, though. As we've seen many times, that's usually temporary.
Oh, you're kind of happy about it in a sense,
Yeah.
because it is starting this kind of value game that you're also being able to play with red-black aggro. Can Kevin do that again? This deck is a masterpiece. If it really beats control and red-black aggro, Kevin found a great deck for this metagame.
Yeah, all he needs is Temple of Aklazats, and how hard can it be?
If that's the only way he can win, then maybe his chances are not that good. And Márcio, once again, with a really strong start here. Scrounger into Pia, and he will follow it up with the Rekindling Phoenix if he has a land. He does.
Well, the questions are strong from Márcio Carvalho's standpoint. Difficult to deal with threats that pile on a lot of damage.
And the best part about it is that you're overloading your opponent's ability to exile your creatures, because there are only so many ways of doing that, and Scrounger, Phoenix, and Chandra all require Vraska's Contempt to be dealt with effectively. Or you spend 2 removal spells on the Phoenix, but, well, that's not what you want to be doing.
Carvalho's going to slam another Phoenix and then negate in hand for Kevin Jones. That's not going to get the job done.
I would have preferred to see a Chandra there.
And Kevin might have to use... Yeah, he's just not even going to do anything this turn.
Kind of a weird card in his hand as well.
Essence Extraction?
Essence Extraction, yeah.
He's got 1 in the sideboard.
That's good against 3/3s, not very good against the Phoenix.
Temporary measure, to say the least.
So I lose 2, I go to 12.
This one looks like it's almost in the books. Well, at least that negate finally found a target here with Heart of Kirin.
Which you can expect against red-black aggro. Heart of Kirin and Chandra great targets for negate. I think that's actually one of the reasons why Brad Nelson and other players started main decking one negate, because you have so many targets also against aggro decks.
Dude, Siege Gang Commander.
Nice.
Nice.
Spicy. Probably a sideboard card. Actually, he has 2 in the sideboard. So another way to overload removal from control decks, because in this matchup, of course, the blue-black midrange deck is the control, playing the control part.
Kevin has a torrential Gearhulk at the ready. And he can use that to finish off, well, one of the Phoenixes at least.
Yeah, imagine if that had been a Vraska's Contempt.
Oof. Both of them would be gone, wouldn't it?
Many cards?
Márcio is holding too many 5-drops. He's holding too many good creatures to cast all of them. In fact, he can't cast any of them.
Yeah.
Scarab God was a draw step there for Kevin Jones. But he's down at 10 life.
And this is very different from playing white-blue, where you just untap oftentimes without the opponent having anything, or maybe having one creature after you've you settled the wreckage. And here, tapping out for something like the Scarab God, sure, your ground forces are nice, but you're taking so much damage.
Scarab God Go was the play there for Kevin Jones. Precarious to say the least. Not a land off the top. What was it?
It was Goblin Chainwhirler, which actually synergizes with Soulscar Mage. Not that it's hugely relevant here, but it might shrink down Kevin Jones' team a little bit. What Márcio was really hoping for was a land, because that would have been almost lethal right there.
5. Yep, counters right. I'm at 4.
Kevin Jones says, I am getting -1/-1 counters here, correct? And they say, yep, you are. Down to 4 is Kevin Jones, and probably on the brink of giving up game number 2 here. He really had to fight to win game number 1, and it looks like Márcio is in a good position with those 3 really powerful spells still left in hand. Glorybringer, Siege Gang Commander. How do you beat that? Kevin's behind on board.
I don't think you do, Marshall. No Temple to save Kevin here this time. Also, Vraska's Contempt really missing this game.
Yeah, we got to see Kevin cast 2 of them in the early stages of that other game, and that was really key for him to stay afloat long enough to get that loop going. Cast Gonti a couple of times, gained a bunch of life off of it, and was able to turn the tide. There's land number 5 for Márcio Carvalho.
Yeah, that's just adding...
Glorybringer is yet another lethal threat.
You can exert it to deal 4 to either of Jones's creatures. Okay, he has a removal spell for that one at least, but...
Cast down the
Is that
Glorybringer.
enough? Is there a flyer? Oh, there's a flyer in the graveyard. So the Scarab God's activation, not irrelevant.
So now that there's a Glorybringer in the graveyard, he can actually block?
There's also a Phoenix in the graveyard, but I don't know if that actually works out so well.
Works better than dying.
Oh yeah, most things are better than dying.
Yeah, I agree. Like cookies. Interesting. Look at Márcio now.
Suddenly, I mean, it looked like he was just super far ahead. Maybe playing Glorybringer was weaker than trying to go for Siege Gang Command?
Yeah, there's absolutely the chance that he needed to just go for Glorybringer and just say, okay, if I untap, or
Siege
excuse
Gang.
me, with Siege Gang, yeah, just say untap and I'm going to kill you with it.
And
Because he
even-
ended up passing the turn back.
Even if the Siege Gang gets killed, on the other hand, if Siege Gang gets killed and reanimated, that's not pretty.
No. It just clogs up the ground. I mean, Kevin doesn't have access to red here, but Márcio just passes the turn. Kevin activates and gets back Rekindling Phoenix.
No, this is the trigger of the Scarab God.
That's right. He got to scry there.
Of course, Márcio is still far ahead here because having your opponent down on 4 and a significant board is certainly a good position to be in, but we all know how quickly Scarab God turns games around.
Jones is in the market for some type of life gain, and he doesn't see it right now. So I think he might... No, he's going to use Never to take a threat off the battlefield. And it looks like he's going to choose to kill...
That's a juicy target.
the Chainwhirler. Why do you say that?
Because the Scarab God can take it back, and suddenly you're dealing 1 point of damage to the Thopter, the Phoenix.
Now we're going to see Siege Gang, right? No, it's another Glory Bringer.
Now Siege King would be even worse because the Chainwhirler trigger
effect,
would take care of it.
Of course. Kevin has left up the activation.
Wow, the Flyers took it down.
They
from
did.
us.
He had just enough.
For so many turns, I was like, no.
And look at Marcio. He says, boy, that one almost slipped away from me. He was so far ahead, and he seems relieved that he won.
Then I get it. Then I get it back, and then you have Glory Bringer, and I have 2 Phoenixes, and I'm alive.
They're still discussing this game.
They are.
Doesn't seem good.
You had to have some
And they had
Glory
to add
Bringer
Glory Bringer too. Like, I only play like.
All right, let's take a look at our feature match over on the side there with Matt Severa and Dominic Proshek. We're in game number 3. Matt Severa is vying to be our constructed master at the World Championship. If he can find a win in this game, he will secure it.
Single match win,
Huge.
not in top 8 contention, but of course a World Championship invite on the line for Matt here. Has overtaken John Rolfe in the race.
1 card?
So much on the line here for Severa. Now for Dominic Proshek, much less. Now these players come in at 9 and 5, so they're still fighting for a potential cash finish and pro points. It's not that there's nothing on the line, but as you mentioned, they're out of contention for top 8. But as you see, the fight is still very real.
Pass.
Matt, one of the more quiet, impressive players, I would say.
Oh yeah.
But you can see that he is currently ranked 20 in the world and currently the most successful constructed player on the Pro Tour this season.
Steel Leaf champion there for Proshek, but boy, has Severa fallen far behind this green beatdown deck.
Can he turn it around somehow? He has
I don't
quite a
know.
lot of damage, but I think there are too many blockers. 6, 10, 14. It's even 1 damage short if I count correctly. So
Sorry. Rate the one I blocked. Yeah.
So Abrade, the one that I blocked to finish it off. It took 4 damage from the Phoenix and then 3 more to kill the Allosaurus there.
choosing the control route here.
Trying to leverage Rekindling Phoenix and maybe Glorybringer.
Playing control with creatures that can't block is really, really tough.
Yes, and it's really rough because the Scrap Heap Scroungers have a hard time attacking on the board like this as well with 2/4 toughness creatures for Dominic. But Severa is truly a master at working his way through board states exactly like this. He's won GPs with vehicles decks. The guy knows what he's doing with these type of decks, but boy, that is a lot of beef on the other side of the table, and he's at 2.
Yeah, these intricate
Currently
decks.
speaking, Dominic could just ship and win, but Matt does have mana up and a card in hand. Feels somewhat risky.
I feel very risky.
What would he lose? He would lose the Brontodon straight up. He would lose one of the Steel Leaf champions.
That doesn't
He would
feel great.
force a jump, yeah. That feels pretty risky.
And every creature he trades with the Phoenix is basically a free card for Severa. On the other hand, if you just sit there, suddenly There might be an unlicensed disintegration or something to just take you out.
Yeah, it depends on Dominic's risk tolerance here, and also his read, right? He's going to wonder, hey, I've been playing against you for this whole entire game, and he doesn't go for it. He passes the turn back to Severa, and Severa says, didn't have it. Cycles a Canyon Slough. Now he's got 2 cards in his hand, and things look even scarier.
Didn't have it with 1 card in hand. Now I have 2 unknowns.
Oh no, is it another Scrap Heap Scrounger? Do you even play it?
And an Ether Hub, I believe.
Matt, considering an exerted attack with Glorybringer, perhaps? He could use that to kill a potent threat on the other side, though they're all lethal, and it does feel like Dominic was setting up for next turn, does it not?
Dominic is attacking with everything next turn.
For sure.
If he has 2 creatures that are lethal coming through, he will not play around Severa having two removal spells off of 2.
And Severa on full bluff mode plays neither the creature nor the land in his hand.
Now, if he plays the Scrounger, the gig is up. So
That's right. And that's going to do it. Dominic Prochek does attack with everything. Plenty enough for lethal, setting up the 2-turn kill there. And Severa takes a loss here in round number 15. We'll keep an eye on how that turns out. Up in the air for who's going to be our Constructed Master. And that means we are back on our front table here. So let's get back down to Kevin Jones, making things interesting here. Every game, Márcio Carvalho, he's playing the aggressor, so his role is much more straightforward. Present threats repeatedly, and he is going to lead off with Carry Zev, Skyship Raider, nothing from Jones. Though he does find Cast Down. That's not going to work on Carry Zev. Passes the turn back with 3 mana available. He does have Knight of Malice in his hand.
He's not casting it because he wants to get Márcio with Johanni's expertise.
Okay, makes sense.
If this is a card that dies to Johanni's expertise, okay, I guess that's fair.
Little awkward for him, given that it puts a Scrounger in the yard as well as food for said Scrounger.
Yeah, but you can't be more greedy than that.
No, I don't think so. The prospect of taking 6 damage next turn, plus whatever Márcio plays, is pretty brutal. So there's Johanni's expertise. Wipe the board.
Put a Knight of Malice on top.
Yeah, seems fine. Another Scrounger off the top of the library for Márcio Carvalho.
Quite a bit weaker now that there is a first strike on the opposing side.
Absolutely.
Not impossible to deal with, though. Maybe just cutting it and returning the 1 Scrounger you have in the graveyard, or casting the one that you have in hand. Seems like a reasonable line. Alternatively, you can just try to get both Scroungers onto the battlefield and then cut the turn after, but then you're not deploying Siege King Commander at the same time.
If he goes land.
Yeah, but this is what Carvalho is calculating now. How does he deal more damage? How important is it to play the Siege King Commander early rather than late?
Wonder if last game is going to be in his head a little bit. Plays an Ether Hub. And, he's just going to go ahead and take care of the Knight of Malice with Cut right now. That lets him leave up 2 mana to get back his Scrap Heap Scrounger later. For Kevin Jones, he's got Champion of Wits to help find answers, land drops, whatever it is that he may need.
Amazing card.
It really is.
It's not a Scarab God or anything that scary. So Márcio is very much in this game.
4 cards.
Kevin getting rid of a land and an Ether Meltdown. Plays a land for the turn and passes back. Here comes the Scrounger.
Márcio didn't reveal Heart of Kirin early on in the game, so Ether Meltdown has lost some of its appeal.
Yeah, he decided to choose Cast Down over it. But here we go. Kevin Jones goes, ooh. 3 goblins at Siege Gang Commander back in action. Cast down is going to kill the commander itself, but as we see, 3 leftover goblins could do some work here. Though they don't match up well against this. The Scarab God is hit the table for Kevin Jones.
As much as I like this technology, I think giving your opponents Scarab Gods to reanimate is...
Siege Gangs to reanimate?
Siege Gangs to reanimate, yeah.
Yeah, that does seem like a major issue.
Any cards? 2.
And as far as answers for the Scarab God goes, it's tough to do for Márcio. He has some, but they're temporary, right?
Márcio just top deck Angrath the Flame Chained.
Really?
Another one of his sideboard cards. It looks like he really brought in all the expensive cards to overwhelm his opponent's control deck here. I don't know if that's really what he needed to fight the Scarab God, but it's definitely another angle. Maybe just sit behind your goblins.
Got to figure if Kevin Jones gets to untap and start activating Scarab God that it's going to snowball away from Márcio Carvalho.
There's even a red mana for Kevin Jones, thanks to either hub.
You're right. Tough decision point here for Márcio. He's going to play Angrath the Flame Chained.
Force
Any-
a discard.
And he plussed, yeah. Each opponent discards a card and loses 2
Discard
life.
exile. Discard. Alright, discard.
Discard Doomfall.
Yep.
1 card left for Kevin, but he doesn't need cards at this point. He needs to untap with that Scarab God.
Yeah, so what we might actually see here is an upkeep activation of the Scarab God, because Kevin is so sure that he will activate it anyway, and he gets to do that before Márcio has mana to activate the Scrap Heap.
Scrounger, that's right.
Because that's actually a foil to the Scarab God in a lot of situations.
Yes. S has its extraction for Kevin Jones.
Upkeep. Trigger.
And there it is. Siege Gang Commanders for everybody. First, Márcio Carvalho. You get a Siege Gang Commander. Now it's Kevin Jones. You get 1 too.
Doesn't leave open the red
Scry
though.
1, you lose 1. 19. Yeah, I'll keep that. Draw.
He found one. Ether Hub for his other red mana source. Now, is there something he wants to do with it here? Does he need to start attacking Angrath? Yeah, he does. So he's going to trade off a combat step for a token.
And why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's actually huge that Kevin has a red mana available, because Angrath can take control of other creatures, and now taking control of a goblin will actually not work because Kevin can sacrifice him.
Márcio looks like he may be stepping away to ask the judge a question, perhaps.
It might be whether Siege Gang Commander is still a goblin, or if it's only a zombie now.
Oh, that's interesting. He's back.
So you go to 4-minute extra time.
It says except it's a 4/4 black zombie. Meaning it's not a goblin anymore.
No, otherwise it would say in addition to its types.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
What a crazy game. But in this case, Márcio actually takes control of the Scarab God.
Because he has his own ether hub, Simon.
Now he has blue mana available.
Play your own cards, guys. Look at this. He's going to get a Scarab God activation. And look at this. He's using some of the technology that Kevin Jones is relying on for his late game. by getting back a champion
no,
of
you're
wits.
right. You're right. My bad. Go ahead.
Winner draw 4.
Yeah.
Wow, that is a crazy play from Márcio Carvalho, stealing the opponent's Scarab God, even if it's just for a turn.
Just for that turn, that was all he wanted.
But he stole a lot of Kevin Jones' thunder with that play.
Yep. Getting the draw 4 ability, getting a 4/4, and making sure that Kevin will not. That's huge. He still needs something for that Scarab God. I mean, he's actually holding on really, really nicely.
Super smart play from Márcio Carvalho. Discards the 2 cards, but he's reloaded his hand, attacking with the Scarab God. And the downside to this play is that Kevin Jones gets to chump block, use that red mana, sacrifice that Goblin that was chump blocking, and actually finish off Angrath. That's what Márcio gave up to make this happen.
Huge deal to have red mana on Kevin's side.
Yeah.
Ether Hub, just the MVP.
For both of them somehow.
Yep.
Heart of Kieran is the follow-up play for Carvalho. He pushes the Scarab God back over into Kevin Jones' territory, and Kevin now has to decide once again on his upkeep.
Scry 1, you lose 1.
Nope, he's just going to go ahead and scry 1. Remember, he does have a zombie. It's the Siege Gang commander there.
Yep. I'll keep it.
He's going to keep it. What is it? Vraska's Contempt.
Yeah, you don't want your opponent to be happy with all their cards on top of their deck.
Yeah.
It's not good news.
Attack you for 9.
This is a big attack as well from Kevin Jones. Marcio's at 18. It's half his life total.
It's an aggressive attack. I mean, Márcio could also just trade off with the Siege Gang commander here.
14.
Yep. Go.
Kevin feels very happy with his hand. 2 removal spells. Suppose he can only cast one or the other this turn, though.
Goblin Chainwhirler, that might be step 1 to getting back into this game for Márcio. That's the kind of high-level magic I came here for, Marshall.
Oh, yeah, this has been fantastic stuff from both of these players. Kevin Jones finding the unlikely line in game 1 to come back. Márcio Carvalho finding some really cool lines here himself. One thing that you should be aware of, dear viewing audience at home, is that clock at the bottom of your screen. 48 seconds left here in game number 3 before we go to extra turns. Goblin Chainwhirler hits the battlefield for Carvalho, and that's going to force the issue on Kevin Jones. If he wants to use these goblins, he's got to do it while the getting's good.
Not the most impressive activation either, because what do you kill? Another Goblin token? That's not all that impressive.
He went upstairs.
Wow, how is
He
that
said,
for a control deck?
You, yeah.
12.
But is that
I'm at 4.
good?
Yep.
2 to you when you have a 1/1 blocker that can prevent up to 5 damage? Wow, it's so difficult to make these choices.
Just this.
Crew up the Heart of
Yeah,
Kieran.
this
I'm
one.
not attacking still.
Okay.
He says, I haven't attacked yet. I did crew my Heart of Kieran, though. He used the freshly cast Goblin Chainwhirler to do it. And we're going to see Vraska's Contempt to kill. And in fact, exile Heart of Kieran and put Kevin Jones at a healthy 18 life. Time has been called.
Yep. Go.
Kevin Jones now with no answer for the Rekindling Phoenix.
Marshall, this is huge. If Márcio gets a draw, he can win his last round to make top 8. If Kevin draws, he can still win, but it's really, like, he's really looking for that one win because he already has a draw.
Upkeep, scry 1, you lose 1.
Oh no, the
You're at 11.
draw feels not great here for Kevin Jones.
Bottom.
He's going to scry and bottom. Knock Márcio down to 11, find a land. He still has that Essence Extraction in his hand.
It's time in a row, so this is turn 0.
Okay.
This is turn 0. Kevin Jones
Oh, okay. Okay, so it's turn 0.
Yes.
is on turn 0.
So what this means is Márcio has 3 more turns.
Yep, he'll have turns 1, 3, and 5.
Kevin only 2.
Yep.
Well, no, with turn 0, he actually also has 3. So Now he can attack into Rekindling Phoenix and exile it from Marcio's graveyard when he blocks. But he left that Goblin token there. I think that might have been a misstep.
Attacks for 4. And Marcio's just going to trade.
Yep. Both of these have been exiled before, so they're not coming back.
How the heck is Kevin going to actually finish this game off? What are his targets? He can get back a Scrap Heap Scrounger, a Knight of Malice.
Yeah.
I think that's
Scarab
about
God
it.
is not that impressive.
It's actually not doing a ton here, is it? I mean, it'll block. Could be worse.
Yeah.
Marcio's going to cycle. Finds another land with it. Not what he wanted. He may be able to cycle again, though. Yeah, he does have another Canyon Slough to cycle if he'd like. Or is that it? Canyon Slough? No, that actually might not be.
I don't think it is, no.
I think it's a Dragon Skull Summit.
The real question here is if Marcio is still playing for a win. A win guarantees him the top 8.
Top 8, number 4.
If he can draw. A draw keeps him alive. A loss eliminates him except for tiebreaker math. But he's going to try to win this game. He's attacking with Rekindling Phoenix, so that shows that both players are still fighting to win this game. And I think Marcio might have found an opening here. Don't forget Cut to Ribbons in his graveyard.
Right.
And if Marcio wins this has been one of the most interesting games all weekend. This maneuvering against Scarab God for multiple turns.
It's been fascinating to watch for us.
Knight back.
And here comes the Knight. It's a big attacker.
It's not a flyer, though.
No.
1, 10, scry,
You're at 10. Here's a scry now from Jones.
bottom.
This is turn 0, 1, 2. See at the bottom part of your screen there.
Most matches are finished by now. The tension is really...
There's a huge crowd around our feature match
Yeah.
area watching this
I
as
can
well.
barely see anything out of the booth.
Yeah, we have a windows in front of our commentator booth, and it's halfway covered up with people just overflowing. Here we go. Essence Extraction to kill the Chainwhirler. Is this going to unlock a big attack for Jones? Boy, that Goblin token's still sitting there, Simon. Marcio would be at 12. Is he going to get back the Chainwhirler, perhaps?
Well, he can't. There's a Scrap Heap Scrounger in the graveyard.
Oh, of course.
Marcio will not let the Scarab God
course he
take
won't.
anything back.
Not
It's
from
Marcio.
that side.
Okay, Marcio's not taking this damage.
You're
No,
at 10 still.
of course. So now, basically, that Goblin token soaked up 5 damage.
Yep.
And Kevin shot 2 at Marcio's face. That's 3 damage lost.
Back to Márcio Carvalho. This is turn number 3. He will have turn number 5 as well to try to find a way to scrap his way into top 8 number 4.
8 lands. That's 6. That's 6 damage with Cut to Ribbon. So what you can expect is the ribbons being the final card that Márcio casts.
Rekindling Phoenix was the draw step there for Márcio. He's going to cast it.
He needs to keep back blockers, right? Otherwise, he dies to the board. So what he's doing here,
Yes.
he's representing... He needs to do the math. Does he need to attack with the Phoenix this turn, or does he just pass and... He's only threatening lethal if he top decks a land, I believe. But at the same time, I don't see how Kevin can still win this.
So Kevin is going to target the Chainwhirler, but we're going to see Márcio Carvalho say no. Activate his Scrap Heap Scrounger in response.
Turn 4, right?
Yep, you're on turn number 4, Kevin, and this is your upkeep where you're going to get your trigger from the Scarab God, knocking Márcio down to 9.
Kevin is holding Vraska's Contempt, so I don't think he can lose this with the
Okay.
card in his hand. That's something at least. Because
So the
he
real
was-
question is then, what does a draw mean to these players?
It just delays the decision for them. It also makes it a lot more difficult for everybody else involved in the tournament.
Of course.
Because it's going to jumble these standings quite a bit.
Marcio's going to go for the double block on the Scarab God, but we're going to see Vraska's Contempt exile one of them. The other one's going to die to combat damage.
Yeah, and this means that Marcio has no chance to win now.
Would you like to concede?
We can still make top 8.
Yep.
Okay, and that's going to do it. They're going to shake hands, but the ending of that, just to be clear for those of you viewing at home, was a draw.
I can make top
Yes.
8.
No, you're right.
If I win,
No,
I
it's
make.
not your
Both of them are in top 8 contention.
Yeah.
They didn't finish the match in time. And that to
That's
me
a shame.
more excitement for us next round.
It does, yes. As you mentioned, it can really jumble things up at the top of the standings and make things interesting for the other players who are in contention for top 8 to try to figure out what they need to do to get in. In the meantime, it was a super sweet match. Never like to see him end on a draw like that, but it is going to make things even more interesting as we wind our way down day 2 here at Pro Tour Dominaria. We've got one more round of Swiss before we cut to our top 8. We'll be back with that and more after these messages.
Always know the right play to make? Show off your skills at a local preliminary Pro Tour qualifier. With over 2,000 game stores worldwide running PPTQs, find an event near you at magic.wizards.com/PPTQ.
Earlier today, we talked about STEM with one of our guests, science, technology, engineering, and math. This is the math bit. So let's take a look at our leaderboard, and here's where we stand right now. Owen Turtenwald and Thomas Hendricks, they're in at 12-2-1. They can play Kingmaker, they can play Dream Crusher, they can play Let's Not Play at all. They are in regardless. But then, look at these 4 players looking for their first Pro Tour top 8, Ernest Lim, Gonzalo Pinto, Wyatt Darby, Manuel Lenz, all at 12-3, all looking for a first top 8. They'd love an intentional draw in the last round, plus a Pro Tour champion in Kazuyuki Takamura. Then though, because of that draw, Kevin Jones at 11-2-2, Márcio Carvalho at 11-3-1. They have to play, they have to win. So whoever they're against, there's no intentional draws to be found. It could be chaos in round 16, and it is going to be a thrilling culmination to what has been a pretty bonkers 5 rounds of standard. One of the players in the mix still, but doesn't know whether they're in or not, is waiting with Brian David Marshall. Go on then, Brian, who have you got?
Thanks, Rich. I'm here with Wyatt Darby playing in his second Pro Tour. You didn't get out of day 1 on that first Pro Tour, but you did come away from that Pro Tour with a little bit of experience that you said helped you here this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last Pro Tour started with a Glorybringer, and little did I know, perfect start, right? That's what you dream of. But Kelvin Chu, drafted my right, also had a Glorybringer. And, you know, I just didn't get off that train, and my deck ended up being terrible. 0-2 won the draft, and everything just kind of followed suit down that path. But, yeah, I really love this new format. I feel like I was really well prepared, and everything went a lot better 6-0 over my drafts.
So tell us a little bit about where you're from and how you ended up going from where that is to the Madison draft camp.
Yeah, so I'm from Iowa, and you know, it's one of those things where we are pretty close, you know, in terms of location. And, you know, it's I've PTQ with a lot of those guys before. You know, Matt Severa, Ben Rasmussen. They've all beaten me handily in the old school PTQ system. So that kind of gave me my in, and you know, also just some really great acquaintances. You know, like Billy Hahn and Steve Locke, Tyler Schroeder. We're all going up there too. So I was able to kind of hop on that train and take advantage of all their knowledge.
And then you went 6-0 in draft, 2 draft trophies here on the Pro Tour.
Yeah, pretty close to the number I have on Magic Online before through lots and lots of grinding. So it was the right time to get them, I think, certainly.
All right, absolutely. Great job so far. X and 3, still got a round. I see pairings are going up and people are getting moving, so you've got a little bit of figuring to do. I'm going to let you get to it. Thanks so much for talking to us, Wyatt Darby.
Thanks so much to Brian David Marshall. Big set of decisions coming up for Wyatt Darby as we approach the final round. Now, pairings are in. We're going to take a further look at those, make sure we've got our math all lined up for you. But we do have time to squeeze in one more deck tech before our last round. One of our favourite French players, it's Pierre Dajon.